All right, welcome back to the most sacred American winter tradition of all. Grown adults waging legal warfare over string lights and inflatable animals. Tonight's theme is the tree, the lights, the HOA. 3 different families, 3 different neighborhoods, and 3 different villains whose biggest life goal is to outlaw joy one committee meeting at a time. You already know how this goes. Someone puts up decorations. Someone else develops a sudden medical condition called, "I can't mind my own business." And then the revenge comes in the form of paperwork so sharp it could slice wrapping paper. So, let's kick this off with story 1. The one where I learned HOA bylaws read exactly like a horror novel when you're holding them at 2 a.m. under a porch light, whispering, "Page 12, page 12, please say I'm allowed to have a wreath." I am 29 years old. I am a woman, and my fiancé and I had just moved into what the realtor called a nice, quiet HOA neighborhood. In hindsight, that phrase should come with a Surgeon General warning. We are talking manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and neighbors who wave like they are auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. I was not trying to start a holiday arms race. I put up warm white lights along the roofline, a small wreath on the door, and a little lit-up reindeer that looked like he would pay taxes on time. Tasteful, classy, zero Vegas energy. The first night the decorations were up, I got maybe 15 minutes of peace before a shadow appeared at the edge of my driveway like a villain entering a soap opera. It was retired HOA President Gary. He had a clipboard in his hand, a reflective vest on, and the whole, "I used to be somebody," uniform. He stared at my lights like they were personally insulting him. Then he said, in the tone of a man who has not smiled since 2009, "Those are not approved." I blinked and said, "They are warm white." He flipped a page on his clipboard like he was about to read my sentence. Then he said, "Too bright. Not on the approved list. You will be receiving a fine." I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. He did not laugh. His face stayed set to expired yogurt. Then he added, "Daily fines, if not corrected." My fiancé whispered, "Babe, maybe just turn them off?" And I whispered back, "No, absolutely not. I will not be bullied by a man who accessorizes with a clipboard." The next morning, I had an official violation letter taped to my door like a medieval curse. It said, "Unapproved holiday lighting. Daily fine, $25. By day 3, it was another letter. Then another. Gary started taking nighttime photos of our house like I was a rare nocturnal animal. Then he posted in the neighborhood Facebook group, "Reminder, some residents are choosing to ignore community standards." No names, of course, just vague, petty menace. The comments were a mix of "who" and "oh my God, thank you, Gary," from people who probably call the police on children for laughing. So I did what every reasonable person does when threatened by suburban tyranny. I opened the HOA bylaws. I expected a few bullet points. What I got was a 76-page saga written like it was trying to stop Christmas itself. I sat at the kitchen table and read it like it was a true crime podcast transcript. Page 7, lawn height. Page 12, exterior modifications. Page 19, holiday decorations. And there it was. The sweet, angelic paragraph that changed my life. Holiday decor was allowed from a specific date to a specific date, with limits on lighting brightness and placement. My lights were warm white, roofline only. No flashing, no music, no inflatable army. I was fully compliant, meaning Gary was bluffing, so I did not take them down. I upgraded my strategy. I sent an email to the HOA board with the subject line, "Architectural review request and fine documentation." Very polite, very calm, very, "I have already eaten today so I can be civil." I wrote, "Hi, could you please provide the bylaw citation supporting these fines, as well as the architectural review guidelines and the proof of board approval for enforcement?" Then I attached a photo of my lights, a copy of the bylaw section, and a spreadsheet titled, "Fines Received." Within an hour, Gary replied, "Not the board, Gary. He replied like he owned the internet. He wrote, "Your lights are in violation. Remove them immediately." So I replied, "Thank you. Please provide the specific bylaw section as requested." He sent, "Community standards." I sent back, "Great. Which section number?" He did not answer. Instead, I got another violation letter. This time, it had a typo. It said, "Unauthorized light," like I was smuggling electricity. That is when I realized Gary was not enforcing rules. He was enforcing vibes. So I did the most surgical revenge possible. I checked if Gary's own house was compliant. And, oh my God, Gary's driveway had a recreational vehicle parked in it. Huge, ugly, like a beige whale. The bylaws said no recreational vehicles visible from the street. His house paint was a shade that can only be described as wet cardboard, and the bylaws required approved colors. His flag setup was weird and oversized, and it violated the exact flagpole height limits. I did not rage post, I did not scream, I did not go gotcha like a cartoon detective. I filed formal complaints, one at a time, with exact bylaw citations, and I carbon copied the entire board. The emails were so calm they were basically deadly. "Hello, board members. Per section 4.3b, vehicles including recreational vehicles may not be stored in driveways. Please see attached photo, time-stamped. Hello again. Per section 2.1a, exterior paint colors must be pre-approved. Please see attached photo." It was like watching a documentary where the predator does not chase. It just waits. Within a week, the board suddenly remembered how to do their jobs. They demanded proof for fines. They launched an audit. They started checking everyone's compliance. Gary went from HOA king to man who regrets inventing paperwork. At the next meeting, the board chair said, "Due to concerns of overreach and inconsistent enforcement, we are removing Gary from the architectural committee effective immediately." Gary turned red like a boiled lobster and sputtered, "This is ridiculous." I smiled, sweet as peppermint, and said, "I agree. The rules should be followed equally." And the final punchline was that my lights stayed. Every single one. Then, because I am petty but lawful, I added one perfectly legal decoration the bylaws could not forbid. An 8-foot inflatable llama wearing a sash that said, "Bylaw compliant." It stood proudly in my yard like a fuzzy attorney. If your villain's weapon is a clipboard, your hero's weapon is a printer. And let me tell you, nothing scares a power-hungry HOA president like someone who can cite Section 4.3b from memory. So let us move on to the next story, because sometimes the HOA is not the only problem. Sometimes your neighbor decides to call the cops on Santa like he is reporting a crime in progress. "Hello, officer. Yes, the suspect is red, jolly, and refuses to stop spreading cheer." Story 2. I am 34 years old. I am a man. I am a single dad, and I have 2 kids. Christmas is my one guaranteed win every year. Bills are stress. Work is stress. Parenting is beautiful stress. But holiday lights are the part where my kids stop fighting long enough to look up and go, "Whoa." So I set up a big inflatable Santa, a few light-up candy canes, and a little North Pole sign. Nothing insane. No synchronized music. No 12-channel laser show. Just pure, wholesome suburban joy. My next-door neighbor, Ron, saw it and reacted like I had installed a nuclear reactor in my front yard. Day 1, he left a note in my mailbox. It said, "Some of us work. Consider turning off the display earlier." It was 6:45 in the evening. Day 2, I got another note. It said, "The brightness is disruptive." They were candy canes. Day 3, he tried the HOA. The HOA told him, politely, "It is allowed." So Ron upgraded from passive-aggressive paper to active-aggressive reality. One night I am outside in a hoodie adjusting the timer because Santa kept turning on like he was possessed. And suddenly I see headlights. 2 police officers step out, cautious but clearly annoyed at being dispatched for whatever this was. One of them says, "Sir, we got a call about a suspicious person in your yard." I pointed at myself and said, That is me. The suspicious person is me. The officer sighed the sigh of a man who has seen too much nonsense and said, "Your neighbor reported someone messing with your property." I looked over at Ron's dark window and said, "So he called the cops because I was setting my own decorations?" The officer glanced at Santa like Santa was about to confess and said, "Everything all right here?" "Yep," I said. "Santa is under control." They left, and I thought that was the end, because surely even Ron would feel embarrassed, right? Wrong. Ron is the kind of guy who uses embarrassment as fuel. He started reporting me to the city. Illegal signage, light pollution, public nuisance. Like my inflatable Santa was running an underground casino. So I decided we were playing by the rules now. I pulled up the city code. I read about light spill limits, decibel limits, and signage definitions. I bought a cheap light meter online. I felt insane doing it. My kids watched me measure brightness and went, "Dad, are you okay?" And I said, "I am great, buddy. Daddy is becoming the Joker, but with receipts." I documented everything: photos, timestamps, meter readings. At 7:12 in the evening, measured lux at property line. Under threshold. I made a folder called Operation Santa Compliance. And while I was doing that, I noticed something I had ignored for months. Ron's backyard floodlight was aimed directly into my kid's bedroom like he was guarding a prison yard. It lit up their curtains so bright my daughter had started calling it the moon. I checked the ordinance. And guess what? That light was actually a violation. Improperly angled, excessive spill, exactly the kind of thing the city code cared about. So I filed a formal complaint with photos, timestamps, and the ordinance section highlighted like it was evidence in a courtroom drama. I did not exaggerate. I did not insult him. I did not even mention Santa. I just sent facts. 2 weeks later, a city inspector showed up at Ron's house. That night, Ron's floodlight was re-angled downward like it had been sentenced to humility. He got a warning. He tried to glare at me across the yard the next day, but it was hard to look intimidating when your entire personality had just been defeated by paragraph 12.6, subsection C. He tried to restart the war with a new note. It said, "This is not over." I smiled and waved like an idiot and said, "Happy holidays, Ron." And the end of the story is that my kids named the inflatable Santa Officer Claus because, in their words, he keeps coming back. Every night Santa inflated with this proud little wobble like he was clocking in for duty. Calling the cops on Santa is the most American thing I have ever heard. But losing the war because your own floodlight was basically a prison search beacon? That is poetry. That is art. That is the Christmas spirit with a side of municipal code. So, let us roll into the third story, where the HOA tried to rewrite reality mid-season and forgot one tiny detail. The homeowner brought the receipts, the neighbors, and the kind of calm voice that makes guilty people start sweating through polo shirts. Story 3. I am 41 years old. I am a woman, and I am a mom in a blended family with 2 teenagers, 1 stepchild, and a husband who hates conflict so much he would apologize to a burglar for making them uncomfortable. The holidays are the one time all the kids stop acting like sarcastic roommates and actually smile together, so I go big on winter decor. It is not about showing off. It is about making my house feel like joy lives there. This year I did colorful lights, not the kind that look like a nightclub. Just color, classic, the kind of lights that make your brain go, "Oh, it is December." The HOA did not bother me for the first week. Then, suddenly, I got hit with a $200 fine for unauthorized lights and color scheme violation. Apparently, only white lights were allowed now. Listen, I am not the person who reads HOA emails like they are sacred scrolls, but I am the person who knows when something smells shady. So I emailed back, "Hi, could you please send me the rule change in writing, including the date it was voted on and the meeting minutes?" That is when the board member who hated color lights responded. I decided to call him Todd because he had strong Todd energy. Todd wrote back, "The rules were updated. Please comply." So I asked again, "Great. Can I have the minutes and the vote record?" There were no minutes, there was no vote record, there was just another fine, like they thought repeating themselves would magically become legal. Meanwhile, I noticed something that made my eye twitch. Todd's relatives, 3 houses down, had a fully synchronized light show. There was music, there were patterns, the whole thing looked like a theme park, and somehow they were approved. So I did what Todd did not expect. I went full nuclear paperwork. I requested meeting minutes, voting records, enforcement history, fine logs, and architectural approvals. I used the magic words HOA boards fear the most. Please provide documentation. I also looked up selective enforcement, which is basically the HOA version of kryptonite. If they enforce rules against some people but ignore their friends, they can get crushed. Then I started talking to my neighbors, quietly, calmly, like I was building a case, not a mob. It turned out I was not alone. One neighbor had been fined because a wreath was too large. Another neighbor got fined for a mailbox decoration. Another neighbor got fined for decor placed too early, even though the bully board member's friend had decor up since Halloween. I collected their fine letters and took screenshots of neighborhood posts praising the approved houses. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, I did not show up angry. I showed up prepared. I walked in with a printed packet, a timeline, screenshots, copies of emails, and a spreadsheet of fines across multiple households. I sat down like I was about to defend a dissertation. My husband whispered, "Please do not start a fight." And I whispered back, "I am not starting anything. I am ending it." The board tried to rush the agenda, but I raised my hand and said, very politely, "Before we proceed, I would like clarification on the rule change that restricts holiday lights to white only. Specifically, I would like the vote count, the meeting date, and the minutes." Todd smiled like a man who had never been challenged and said, "It was updated by the board." I slid the packet forward and said, "Wonderful, because according to the governing documents, changes require a formal vote at an open meeting, and it must be recorded in the minutes." I requested those minutes multiple times. There was silence, the kind of silence that makes fluorescent lights feel loud. Then I added calmly, "Also, here is the enforcement history for the past 2 seasons. You will notice color lights are being fined selectively, while certain households received permission without a documented approval process. Here are the screenshots of those displays. Here are the fine letters from other residents. This is the part where selective enforcement can expose the HOA to legal liability." Todd's smile cracked like a cheap ornament. And because I believe in dramatic flair, I had my lawyer friend on speakerphone. He was not yelling. He was not threatening. He was just present. He said very calmly, "Good evening. I am happy to answer questions about consistent enforcement and documented governance." The board chair looked like someone had just unplugged their confidence. They started flipping through my packet like it was cursed. Someone muttered, "We may have made an error." Todd snapped, "This is ridiculous." And I responded, sweet as sugar cookies, "Agreed, which is why I am sure you will reverse the fines." They backpedaled so hard I thought they were going to sprain something. The new rule got tossed because it was not properly voted on. The fines got reversed, not just mine, but everyone's. When the meeting ended, Todd stood up and announced, "I am resigning," in a dramatic huff like he expected applause. He did not get applause. The final punchline was that my colorful lights stayed. Then I added a sign right under them that read, "Happy Holidays, approved by the actual voting process." There are 2 kinds of HOA villains: the clipboard guy and the email tyrant. Both crumble instantly when confronted with the scariest thing in the universe: documented minutes and a calm woman with a binder. And that is the trilogy. 3 neighborhoods, 3 different Grinches, and 1 universal truth. You can take away a person's peace, but you cannot take away their ability to weaponize bylaws, city codes, and petty but legal inflatable livestock.